Right now, I'd like to talk to you about probably one of my most favorite games played by a great player. It was Anatoly Karpov who was actually playing versus Boris Spassky. Now, this game is incredibly instructive for a number of reasons, but I'd say that the most important of these reasons is the way on how Karpov was able to take the small advantages and really transform them into a fantastic and winning position. So the game was played in Leningrad in their ninth match game in 1974. So there's a lot to learn from this game, so I'd like to share this with you. Basically, white started with e4, c5, knight f3, e6, d4, exchange, and then knight x to the d4. So white is getting the center space, control. He's actually up to develop the rest of his pieces. So black played knight f6, knight c3, and d6. Now, what comes with this is pretty interesting. I mean, we have the original Scheveningen. It's both white and black are developing fairly nice in that way. And so after that last move, essentially what black played was the move of, okay, here, and castles, and white plays pawn up to the f4. I have to admit that it was pretty good, quite well played. I mean, white is definitely looking for a possibility to control the center or get certain ideas in there. So that's nice. That's quite nice. And then, of course, after knight c6, white simply played with bishop to the e3. What you realize is that, I mean, at this point, white is just developing towards the center. He's not developing to attack or do anything special. He just wants to build up a strong and quite a high quality type of structure. Now, a lot of times we believe that the opening is just so that we could get the pieces ready. And the truth is, the opening is always about making sure you can create a better structure. Now, that is the thing. The structure is really the thing that will further help you to, play with that formation and achieve a lot more. But it is always about creating a good structure. So, with this move being played out, of course, the main goal for white remained to simply focus upon the easy development, the pieces that can come out. And after bishop d7, white even did the move of knight at the b3. So things are looking good. And of course, with that in mind, everything starts to be a little better, as a matter of fact. So let's take a look. After that was played, basically black decided to do a5, a4, and knight b4. Now a5 is a very rare move that comes out in these positions. Usually it's not supposed to be played because when he plays with a5, that kind of leaves him with certain bits of weaknesses, and that's fairly unpleasant, let's put it this way. So it's not that much of a great idea. It's not that perfect to play. Of course, there is the idea that if the knight comes then, he could attack with it and then do or try different type of things. But let's take a look and see actually what happened. After the move of, after that last move of knight at the b4, the idea is that now white plays bishop to the f3. He's actually doing pretty well right now. Not only because of the concept that the center is the most important area where white needs to back up and set his pieces upon, but also for a number of reasons. The major reason is that the development and preparation is really what white is looking for. It's great to have. It's very valuable to get them going. And yes, what's happening in the next couple moves? Actually, in the next couple moves, black played bishop c6, and then white decided to move upon with knight d4. I would say that this was a great move. See, centralization is something that you build at all times. Earlier, white actually moved this knight away so that it's out of the danger, but now we choose to place it right back up because it simply has an incredible value being in the center. Whether you go back and forth, whether you actually maneuver your pieces or strengthen your command in the middle, the center is always something important that you would like to be thinking no matter what. Because this is literally the side where almost anything is going to happen. So give yourself the time to build it well and create strong opportunities. This is a really good idea as it came up. So what happens in the game next? Okay, well, in the game next, after knight d4, black played g6, and then white plays with rook to f2. Step by step, that rook is of course going over to d2, so we could have an extra pressure coming against the opponent's d6. It does look very good, and I have to say that I don't see the same qualities for black. Most of his own pieces feel a little off, and that's going to give white a wonderful chance to keep the tension, do a lot more. So let's take a look and see what happened. After that last move, essentially black picked up to play e5. I wouldn't say that this was a good move, although there is a point about this. He just wants to make sure that the pawn advances. He pushes it up, and he could, attack with it. So it makes sense. Now, what's going on really when the pawn pushed? When black advanced this pawn right up to e5, white actually chose to play knight x to the c6, bx to the c6, and f6 to the e. The reason why is because as this exchange did happen, now you realize something incredibly bad has happened for black. He has chosen to open the position to engage into tactics and everything, without any real opportunities. This is very, very important. See, you have to be actually very careful about this, because the fact is that when black opened up, when he started with the tactics, with the ideas, he doesn't have any real backup, any real preparation in his attempt to make it work. And so white, of course, is very comfortable with that. There's really not much that we could worry. And of course, after that, f takes to the e, black played d takes to the e, queen f1. And now we see the second stage of any successful plan. One of the most valuable things that you would want to remember is the possibility to maneuver your pieces. Most people think that all they have to do really is just bring out their pieces and set them up, and everything will be great. Truth is, it's not at all like that. Developing the pieces is one part, but truth is, it's fairly not enough, fairly insufficient. What really helps in most of these positions is our opportunity to regroup, to develop our pieces in a way so that they could actually have more command. They could have the freedom and ability to stand up whenever or if they need to, and step by step, things are going to go right. And that's what white is doing now. The queen is getting closer. It can very nicely advance onto the c4 out there. And yes, things are perfect. What comes out next? Well, actually, after that line was played, then, black is certainly having a little extra problem. He played with the move queen c8, and white does h3. I want you to take a look at what is going on now. It is really just about small moves that take away space, grant our pieces the ability to be more advanced, and a lot more capable. With a move like h3, we're taking away the possibility for the black knight to come in g4. But even more importantly than that, we just know there is nothing to be worried about. Step by step, things are going to be good. See, so actually, very valuable. The key thing is always about making sure we have the control. We get a little bit of a possibility, and so that's the way to go forward with. And that was a great thinking. Now, with that in mind, surely black is having a little extra problem. So what's coming up in this case? So after that, then black did the move of knight of the d7. Not sure what he was intending to do with this move, but I suppose what black wanted to play is knight c5 or bishop c5, which would cause some exchanges, and I suppose will set black's position free as it needs to be. Makes sense to do that. So what does white do? Bishop g4. This next move, in my opinion, is brilliant, and it's brilliant for a number of reasons, the most important of which is it limits black's position. That's what we care about most, so just what we've got to play with is like essentially prevent him from ever reaching the bishop to the c5, preventing him from actually going forward and advancing step by step. Great idea, a wonderful move. And so what's coming up next is something even more interesting. Let's see. So, after the move of bishop g4, black plays h5. Of course, he wanted to get rid of that bishop, and it makes good sense. I mean, if black really sets up the bishop out there, then it's going to be very dangerous. But what do we do after the move of h5? This bishop takes d7, queen takes to the d7, and queen c4. The queen to c4 is wonderful. It's not just the fact that we are pressuring f7. I mean, that's one of the things that is definitely happening. But more importantly, we've got rook to the f1 out there, and then we've got the ability to play against f7. And see, it usually takes some time to do this, but you have to be patient. Remember that improvement can take a long, long time until it's made correctly. And so you want to use all that time to really build your pieces. So it's like now we can understand that, just a lot of the forces are great. Most of black's actual pieces are just, it's quite backward. So this is very, very interesting. So what's coming up in this case? After that, knight c4. Basically, queen c4, basically black did bishop h4, rook d2, queen e7, and rook f1. Simply take a look at how every single one of white's pieces takes upon a very strong location. A place where they will all be connected, strong, and relevant, all the same. Does it take time to do that? Yes, it does. Is it important? You bet. You simply cannot be successful unless you actually find a way to, really bring over your pieces. So now we're actually setting everything up, and it's perfect. This is great. Black has obviously some issues to be concerned about. So, what comes next in the play? Okay, after that last move, black did rook fd8, and I would like to ask you about what your choice would be in this position. Keep in mind, white is doing a fairly good job here. He's got a great active queen, he's got the bishop, the knight. I have to say that if I'm white at this point, I'd be very happy of the current situation. The only question is how to turn this thing, the current development, into something more, I guess, more important or valuable as it stands. There's always a bit of a challenge to answer these questions, but let's think. And you know what? While most people will think necessarily about a winning move or an impressive idea, I always say think a little bit more about what's a problem. See, finding out the problem in the position is one of the most special things you can do, because if you discover the actual problem, you'll almost immediately know what is wrong or what is it that you've got to add in order to make the play better again. Right now, white's got a great bishop that seems to be very useful on these squares. We have a great looking queen, which is very advanced. You have the rooks that are perfect. The only piece that really seems off play right here actually turns out to be, well, the knight. Let's face it. It is a big problem. The knight simply does not have the value nor the possibilities that it needs to have in order to be more relevant, more powerful here. It's unfortunate, but it is true. So, okay, we've found out what is missing. That's great. So what do we do next? How to improve it? Start with the problem. See, sometimes it's going to be an easy problem to resolve. Sometimes it's not. The problem now with the knight is resolved by maneuvering. When you see a bad piece inside your territory, usually all you have to do is to figure out, possibilities to make it better. Now, that's not going to be easy, but this is what we need. And so, what white picked up to do was simply to maneuver the knight. So, how do we maneuver it? A couple of different squares. Best one is, of course, knight b1. Should black pick up to exchange, we have the ability to recapture extremely fast. Should he not, I mean, we could even get our knight onto the d2, so he could go to b3 and everything. And so we realize the value, the power of that move, connected with the different resources. One of the things is maneuvering, and of course, people are worried that maneuvering is going to take time. I've said that before, and yet I would like to repeat it. Time in chess depends on what the opponent is going to do. Whether the opponent can actually make anything dangerous or whether he can't. See, that you usually determine what you can achieve or anything else. This is very, very important. So, what is going on is key. What is definitely ready to maneuver it, to get ready, and so things are nice. What's coming up? Knight b1, black played queen b7, and now white played king h2. You might be worried as to why white's playing with a move like king h2. I mean, at first sight, it doesn't really look like this king belongs there. It seems like a very weird candidate that is not providing the king with a good position. But then we realize that this move has a great value in itself. The point behind it is to make sure we actually go for a move like pawn to the g3, so we could drive the black bishop out of the way. And yet, at the same time, we restrict. It's very interesting in this case. So we would like to restrict him. Restrictive move that simply takes away the good place or squares for his pieces, so he doesn't move on and create any type of tactics. Now, I have to say that this is pretty nice. Not necessarily big, but pretty nice by itself. So what happened? So seeing this type of tactic, what came through after this? After that last move was actually done, I believe that black was feeling a little unease, so he actually played with the move of king to g7. Supposedly this move is done so that he could prepare, I don't know, f6 or anything like that. It makes good sense to do this. But it doesn't have any real purpose, the king move. So now I just plays with c3 and knight a6. So where to go next? It's a very good thinking. Just like, where do we go? Do we advance actually with a nice pressure? Do we do something else in here? What's the right way to go? Beautiful question. Well, I still believe that white's major goal must be to improve his pieces. It's just that it's not very easy to do so. And as this happened, as the position over here is so critical, white decided to make a simple move and regroup his rook. This was great. I really believe so. First of all, it's because now that knight of ours is going to have the ability to move forth and go to the d2. But actually, we could see by itself that the moves that we're doing are going to give us a great chance to follow. We have that shot. We could get this beautiful line of knight f3 or knight b3, and why not? Let's do it. Gradually, step by step, white is turning this into a very good position. Earlier, we wanted to exchange the rooks, but now we don't care that much about it. What we really care about is the way to align up and advance the pieces. So this was great. Actually, the moment this happened, obviously black's got enough trouble himself, so he decided to play with the only thing that makes sense, which is rook f8 to protect, and now knight d2. See how white is doing everything one step at a time. It's really important that you do not rush. Again, think about what the opponent can do. If your opponent cannot do anything that dangerous, we don't have to be worried. If he can, then of course we got to think a little bit differently. But in that case, now white's knight is actually coming through. It's getting to reach the f3 or the b3 as it stands, and it will be a great line. The line of thought is always, let's rearrange, let's regroup the pieces so that they can take the best of what they want in with the current positions. It was good. So, what's coming over next? With that in mind, basically black played bishop to the d8, and so actually after bishop to the d8, then like there's f6, and then rook to the d2. And you see, white just simply continues with his gradual approach. It's not about tactics. It's just, okay, let's get the pieces. Let's have them step up very quickly, and then of course we have the ability to think about moves like, say, more possibilities like knight to the queen to f6, queen e6, and all of this. It's great, it's simple, and it seems to work. Exactly what you would like to do or achieve if you're in a similar position. Beautiful. Well, I guess Black was not happy about it. And you see, he's actually losing, but he's not losing because he played terrible chess. He's losing because there's nothing that Black could do. None of his pieces were ever in condition to really make anything problematic. And that's why the game just gets bad, with every single moment. So after that, of course, seeing the problems and the tension and all of this, surely Black has a big issue. He actually continued with the move of the rook d2, bishop e7, and that's where White plays queen e6. See, Black's pieces are too backward. They're too far away so that we could say that they're in condition to fight back. And that's exactly what White is using in order to grab all these opportunities and set the threats on the line. It's a beautiful thing. And I can't say that Black's got much to do. Now we have the rook to the d7, so this is pretty tricky. He cannot easily or that simply defend it. And after that, when Black played with the move of rook to the d8, surely this was a great moment so that White can simply continue with rook takes d. Now we see Black is losing. If Black just captures with the move of rook takes the d on his own, which is fine, then he would lose. Why? Because if he plays it like that, we are of course going to go forward with knight takes the e5, f takes d, and rook f7. The only defender that was considered to be this valuable rook is going to be gone, and with that one gone, then apparently he would not have a chance to do, nor the possibility to save himself. It would have been a very painful thing to experience. So you could see the different type of problems that Black is suddenly getting one after the other, in this type of position. So this is great. Let's take a look and see what comes out next. So for example, after that type of move, then Black played with, okay, so actually after rook takes d, bishop takes to the d, then what should White be doing now? I'm going to give you that second the thing here as to where do you feel White must go. How does he get to improve or further really pressure Black's position? And what's the best way to play it? Well, the key is to take the possibility and really improve our pieces. Now the queen is being already very well placed, I have to say that. So the only piece that yet needs more attention is the rook. In the end of the day, we've moved around so nicely, but just the key is let's regroup it fast. That helps White to pick up the move rook to the d1 and to pick it up really quick and really efficient. Rook d7 seems like a very huge threat at this very moment in time, so that basically causes Black to worry. But there isn't really too much more that Black could do. It's a very difficult position, very hard in that case, and so it's just this is pretty bad to look at. What about Black? Can he do anything? I don't know. I don't really get to think so in this case. It's difficult position with a lot of problems and many challenges that he's got to worry about. Knight b8 is one of the ways to play it. When knight b8 could have been this type of one move that helps him to save, but truth be told, it's bad. It's really, really bad here. And what's coming up next move is surely a lot of different threats. One of the things that's very interesting is bishop to the c5. We get a real threat coming up. Black has to do the move of rook to the g8. And now, of course, we got to ask, all right, so we've got the pieces, we've got the space, we've got the stability in this type of position. So what to do? Great setup. Now what? The great setup is now what do we do? Think of this. If you start attacking, if you already get to the point where you could really do stuff like this, I'd recommend that you go with the question, the big question, which is well, actually, there are four key questions. The first very valuable question must be, what is the main target? So don't forget to ask yourself this. What's the main target? Now, we clearly understand that the main target we'd like to go after is the black king. The second very valuable question you'd like to go for is to think of, and to think in terms of, okay, what happens to be the amount of pieces that I have that can help my attack? Do we have enough pieces to make it? Well, that's the second question. And the third most important question must always be, do you have enough open lines? Truth is, now the black target, the major target is the king. We also have the bishop that's being challenged. And there are plenty of things that just don't stand too well. Like white's got great pieces, open up lines. So black is almost on the verge of losing that way. So what should white do so he could actually be successful? In a position of this kind, the key to really ask ourselves in this case is think about the main defender. Now, what is the main defender? The main defender being in this position is bishop. That bishop on the d7 serving the power of a good piece, protecting black, and keeping everything together. We've got to get rid of that. See, remember, the main defender you will easily find amongst all the other kind of useful pieces that he has, because the main defender has one function and one function only. It does the support that other pieces cannot do. So basically, we could say that if you find out the main defender, usually it's going to be the force that without which he would lose. If that one is gone, you could say, all right, because he's definitely going to be losing the game. Without the rook on h8, he would lose the game, that's for sure. But then we could also say that without the d8 bishop, he would lose the game too, very importantly. So now it's about rook takes d8. This was great. It practically breaks down black's position. But more importantly, what it does is that after rook takes d8, and then bishop to the e7, we see the power. We see the danger here. This move has eliminated practically the bishop, one of the main guardians, but then all the other black pieces remaining back there also can't come in to help. And you could see why. The knight is undeveloped, the rook is being attacked, even the queen doesn't look like it has the ability to move out onto a better position. That's such a good thinking. Such a good thinking, actually. So that was great. What about this? I mean, does he have any chance to escape or make anything different out of it? No, he doesn't. That's the reason. So think about that. How can you eliminate the opponent's main defenders? Whatever is keeping him alive, whatever is keeping him solid, to remove this and leave him with practically no good protection, no good support. It's not easy to do, but as it was played, it was amazing. With the bishop to the e7 out there, surely the f6 was hanging, black's pieces were awful, and none of those that he had are in condition to help him defend himself. It was great. Solid, strong, powerful, and very efficient as it is. After bishop e7, black resigned. So what this game shows you is not just the power of setting up and developing, which happened in the beginning, and gaining more space, that are two things that support each other, but also the different stages. After the development, there is a lot of improvement that you're supposed to apply before you become successful. It takes time to regroup the pieces, get the right lines, the possibilities, and only then actually start thinking about a potential attack that you could deliver. You see, it's kind of difficult to do all that. It's not that simple, but you must do it, especially if you want to have a more successful middle game. Taking the time to utilize all these important possibilities one after the other is, I'd say, the most important thing of all others. And as White did it, he became very successful in his own sequence. So Karpov's approach of figuring out the problems, restricting the opponent, and really thinking about our own trouble within the position were all these things that matter so much. It was effective, easy, and amazing when it was executed in such a brilliant manner. Hope that you learn and that you follow the 3 stages of planning successfully in your own games. Thank you.